The bullet struck the recording booth before Olivia Hayes finished the sentence. Glass exploded inward with a sound like ice breaking across a frozen lake. Adrian Russo moved before anyone screamed. 1 second, he was standing on the other side of the studio console, dressed in a black suit that seemed to absorb the red emergency lights. The next, he had crossed the room, driven Olivia beneath the mixing desk, and covered her body with his own. A second bullet punched through the reinforced window. The glass did not shatter completely. It spread into a silver web directly behind Adrian's head. Olivia could hear his breathing above her, slow, controlled, not frightened. His broad hand was pressed against her waist, holding her down. The other held a gun she had not seen him draw. "Do not speak," he said. His voice was quiet enough to be mistaken for tenderness. Outside the booth, men in dark suits flooded the hallway. Someone killed the lights. Red security lamps began flashing over the studio walls, illuminating suspended microphones, soundproof panels, and the white words printed across the script still lying on the music stand. "I remember the blue door." That was the sentence Olivia had been hired to record. 5 words, $20,000. No explanation, and apparently worth killing her over. A man shouted through Adrian's earpiece. "North roof! Shooter moving toward the adjacent building." Adrian did not answer immediately. His gaze remained fixed on Olivia's face. It was the first time anyone connected to the contract had seen her. For 11 years, millions of people had heard Olivia Hayes without knowing what she looked like. She had narrated fantasy heroines, animated queens, grieving mothers, seductive villains, and one talking fox that had made an entire generation of children cry. Her voice was famous. Her face was not. She had arranged her career that way deliberately. Now the most dangerous man in Chicago was staring at her, as though her hidden face mattered less than the sound she had made seconds before the bullet came. "Are you injured?" Adrian asked. Olivia's pulse hammered against her throat. "You told me not to speak." Something shifted in his expression. Not amusement. He did not look like a man who remembered how. "Answer me." "No." Another report came through the earpiece. Adrian rose slightly, keeping his body between Olivia and the fractured glass. "Take the shooter alive." The voice on the other end hesitated. "And if we can't, then make certain he regrets being found." Olivia pushed against Adrian's chest. It was like pushing against a locked door. "Get off me." His eyes dropped to her hand, then returned to her face. They were darker than she had expected. Not empty, exactly. Emptiness suggested absence. Adrian Russo's eyes held too much: calculation, memory, suspicion, and something that looked dangerously close to recognition. He moved just enough to let her sit up. Olivia adjusted the neckline of her dark green blouse and forced herself to breathe evenly. She was conscious of every inch of herself beneath his gaze. Her full figure, the curve of her hips pressed awkwardly against the narrow space below the console, the loose waves of auburn hair falling across her cheek. She had spent years refusing cameras because she valued privacy, not because she was ashamed of her body. Still, she knew the moment when strangers assessed her. Adrian did not assess her. He listened to her, even in silence, especially in silence. "What was that?" she demanded. "A warning." "For whom?" His jaw tightened. "You." The studio door opened. 3 armed men entered, led by a tall man with a scar through one eyebrow. He took in the ruined window, Adrian's position beside Olivia, and the gun still held low in Adrian's hand. "The shooter abandoned the rifle," the scarred man said. "No prints, no shell casings. He had the neighboring building's cameras looped before we arrived." Adrian's attention sharpened. "Audio?" "We found a small directional microphone mounted with the rifle." Olivia felt cold. The scarred man looked toward her. The shooter wasn't watching the booth. He was listening. Adrian went utterly still. Olivia looked between them. Why would a sniper need to hear me? Adrian turned toward the script on the music stand. 5 ordinary words waited beneath the broken glass. I remember the blue door. He picked up the page with a gloved, because, he said, he was not ordered to kill your face. His gaze rose slowly to hers. He was ordered to kill your voice. 24 hours earlier, Olivia's greatest concern had been whether a dragon queen should sound heartbroken or furious. She had been alone in Studio 6, arguing with herself through 3 different character voices, when her agent called. Mara Klein rarely sounded nervous. She had negotiated contracts with streaming studios, game companies, animation giants, and one notoriously unstable director who insisted that microphones could detect dishonesty. That afternoon, Mara sounded as though she were calling from inside a bank robbery. I have a private job, she said. 1 sentence. No credit. No public release. Olivia swiveled in her chair. How private? They won't tell me who the client is. Then, no. $20,000. Olivia stopped moving. For 1 sentence. For 5 words. That is either the easiest job in the world or evidence in a future criminal trial. Mara exhaled. The client has already auditioned 37 actresses. 37? Hollywood stars, Broadway legends, award winners. He rejected every one. Olivia glanced through the booth window at the empty control room. Why me? Someone sent him your recording from the Winter Garden. Olivia remembered the audiobook. A historical romance about a woman waiting years for her missing sister. What's the sentence? Mara paused. I remember the blue door. The words seemed to settle strangely in the studio. Olivia repeated them softly. On the other end of the line, Mara stopped breathing. What? Nothing. You just made it sound. Like what? Like you were remembering something. Olivia looked at her own reflection in the dark window. I wasn't. The contract required her to arrive after midnight at a private studio on the 42nd floor of the Halcyon Hotel. No phone, no assistant, no recording devices. The client would remain behind tinted glass. Olivia nearly refused again. Then she saw the confidentiality clause. The contract identified the client's representative as Russo Holdings. Everyone in Chicago knew Russo Holdings. Officially, it was a private investment group, controlling hotels, shipping companies, luxury properties, and a rapidly expanding film distribution network. Unofficially, Adrian Russo owned half the city's fear. Olivia had read the stories. Witnesses who forgot what they had seen. Politicians who resigned after private dinners. Men who insulted the Russo family and vanished into retirement without ever discussing why. She had no interest in meeting a mafia boss. Unfortunately, she had a lifelong weakness for unanswered questions. At 12:15 in the morning, a black SUV collected her from the underground garage beneath her apartment building. The driver did not speak. 2 more vehicles followed. Olivia watched wet Chicago streets slide past the tinted windows. Neon signs reflected across the river. Rain blurred the skyline into a watercolor of silver towers and red traffic lights. The city looked beautiful when viewed from behind bulletproof glass. That should have warned her. At the Halcyon, security escorted her through a private elevator and down a corridor emptied of hotel guests. The recording studio looked less like a creative space and more like a surgical theater. White acoustic panels, polished black consoles, cameras built into the ceiling. A single man waited in the control room. Adrian Russo. Olivia recognized him immediately. Photographs did not capture the stillness around him. He was 38, tall, broad-shouldered, and dressed with severe precision. His black hair was brushed back from a face built from sharp angles and controlled expressions. He did not approach her. He stood behind the console, one hand resting beside an old silver tape recorder. No greeting, no introduction. He simply said, "Speak the line." Olivia lowered her bag onto a chair. Most clients begin with hello. Most clients waste time. Most voice actors like context. You do not need context. Then you don't need an actress. You need a machine. The security men near the door became very quiet. Adrian's gaze narrowed. Olivia had the distinct sense that few people contradicted him while remaining in the room. He pressed a button on the console. The recording booth door opened. "Speak the line," he repeated. Olivia entered the booth. The script waited beneath the microphone. "I remember the blue door." She adjusted the headphones, though no music played. Through the glass, Adrian watched her with the focus of a man waiting for an explosion. Olivia tried the sentence once with warmth. "I remember the blue door." Adrian shook his head. She tried it, with grief. He shook his head again. She gave him suspicion, regret, disbelief, and quiet wonder. Each time, he rejected her. After the 7th attempt, Olivia removed one headphone. "You rejected 37 actresses because none of them knew what you wanted. I suspect you don't know either." Adrian placed both hands on the console. "I know exactly what I want." "Then describe it." His gaze fell to the silver tape recorder. For the first time, something moved beneath his composure. Pine. It appeared so briefly, Olivia almost missed it. "Say it," he said, "as though you are comforting a frightened child while knowing you may not survive the night." The room changed. Olivia looked at the words again, not as an actress this time, as a woman speaking through fear to someone smaller than herself, someone hiding, someone who needed her calm more than she needed her own life. She leaned toward the microphone. Her voice softened. "I remember the blue door." Adrian's face lost all color. He reached for the edge of the console as though the floor had shifted beneath him. Then the first bullet struck the glass. Now, less than 3 minutes after the shooting, Adrian was ordering the entire hotel locked down. "No one leaves," he told the scarred man. "Guests, staff, contractors. Search every floor." Olivia stood. "You can't detain an entire hotel." Adrian looked at her. "I can. You hired me without telling me I might be assassinated." "I did not know. That makes one of us." He stepped closer. The emergency lights painted one side of his face red. "You are coming with me." No, it was not a request. It sounded like one. A poorly phrased one. The scarred man glanced away, hiding what might have been disbelief. Adrian's expression remained cold. "The person who fired through that window knew precisely when you would speak. Your schedule is compromised. Your apartment may be compromised. Your agent may be compromised. Mara is not involved. You cannot know that. I've known her for 11 years. I have known men for 20 who tried to murder me. That says more about your friendships than mine." Adrian's Chaza held hers. For one dangerous second, the room seemed to narrow until only the space between them remained. Then he lifted the old tape recorder. "I need you to hear something." He inserted a tiny cassette. Static filled the ruined studio. A girl's voice emerged. Young, breathless, trying not to cry. Behind her came distant shouting and what sounded like fire. "Adrian, listen to me. Stay beneath the stairs. Don't come out until the bells stop." Olivia's fingers curled. The voice continued. "You're going to hear bad things. You're going to want to run, but you can't. Look at the wall across from you." A child whispered something too faint to understand. The girl answered, "Yes, the blue door." Her breath broke. Then, gently with impossible calm, she said, "I remember the blue door." The recording ended in a burst of static. Olivia stared at the tape recorder. Her own voice seemed to linger in the room even though she had not spoken. The cadence, the softness, the slight drop on the final word. It was not merely similar, it was nearly identical. Adrian watched her reaction with brutal attention. "Who is she?" Olivia asked. "The woman who saved my life." "When?" "I was 14. What happened to her?" She disappeared before dawn. Disappeared? Her body was never found. Olivia forced herself to look away from the recorder. Voices can resemble each other. Genetics, geography, vocal habits. It happens. You sound exactly like her. I sound like hundreds of people. That is my profession. No. He stepped closer. You sound like whoever I need you to become. But when you stopped acting, you sounded like her. The accusation in his voice disturbed her more than the gunfire. I was given emotional direction. You were given a memory. It was not mine. Adrian's eyes hardened. Then we will discover whose it was. He placed his hand against the center of her back and guided her toward the exit. Olivia turned sharply. Do not handle me. His hand fell away, but his attention moved to the bullet-fractured glass behind her. When he spoke again, his voice was lower. If I had not handled you, you would be dead. The hallway beyond the studio had become an armed fortress. Men stood at every entrance. Hotel employees knelt beside the walls, while security searched bags and checked identification. Olivia hated the fear in their faces. She hated that Adrian seemed unmoved by it. Most of all, she hated that when he walked beside her, she felt safer. The private elevator opened onto the underground garage. A convoy of black SUVs waited with engines running. Where are you taking me? She asked. My home. No. Your refusal has been recorded. So has my kidnapping, I hope. You entered voluntarily. I am not leaving voluntarily. Adrian stopped beside the rear door of the first SUV. Rain blew through the open garage, scattering cold droplets across his shoulders. You have two choices, he said. You may come with me while I protect you, or you may attempt to return to an apartment that has almost certainly been watched for weeks. You don't know that. He held out his hand. The scarred man placed a phone in it. Adrian showed Olivia the screen. A live camera feed displayed the hallway outside her apartment. The angle came from inside the smoke detector. Olivia stared at it. The feed changed. Her kitchen, her bedroom door, the small studio where she recorded auditions. Her skin turned cold. How did you get this? My men accessed a private server connected to the microphone found near the sniper's rifle. Someone has cameras in my home? Yes. For how long? We do not know. Rage overcame fear. Olivia reached for the phone. Adrian let her take it. She watched herself cross her kitchen in footage recorded the previous evening. Watched herself make tea. Watched herself sit at her desk and call Mara. Every private habit had been collected. Every unguarded moment. I'm calling the police. You may. She looked up. You don't care. The detective who responds will be Captain Ellis. He has accepted Salvatore money for 9 years. The name struck her. Salvatore. Adrian's expression became unreadable. You know it? Victor Salvatore financed an animated film I worked on 3 years ago. He owns Meridian Pictures. He owns much more than films. Olivia remembered Victor as elegant and paternal, a silver-haired man who praised her performance while repeatedly asking why she refused publicity. At the time, she had assumed he wanted marketing photographs. Now she remembered something else. Before every recording session, Meridian's engineers required unusually long voice calibration tests. Adrian saw recognition move across her face. What? Meridian collected hundreds of hours of isolated vocal samples from me. His stare became lethal. Get in the vehicle. This time, Olivia did not argue. Adrian Russo's home occupied the upper 6 floors of a black glass tower overlooking Lake Michigan. It had no family photographs, no warm clutter, no evidence that anyone lived there except the faint smell of cedar, leather, and expensive coffee. Olivia stood inside a vast living room surrounded by windows. Rain moved over the city below. Lightning revealed the dark lake in violent flashes. Adrian's men searched her bag while she watched. That is personal, she said when one of them opened a small leather case. Adrian glanced over. Inside were throat lozenges, a tuning fork, a miniature humidifier, and 2 small bottles of vocal spray. "Give it to her," he ordered. The man returned the case immediately. Olivia took it. "How gracious. You are alive. You continue presenting that as a gift rather than the minimum standard for a professional engagement." Adrian removed his jacket. Beneath it, his white shirt was streaked with blood. Olivia stared. "You said you weren't injured." "I asked whether you were." The bullet had not struck him, but a shard of glass had cut across his shoulder. Blood darkened the fabric. A doctor arrived within minutes, accompanied by 2 guards. Adrian allowed the wound to be cleaned while issuing instructions about the hotel shooter. Olivia sat across the room and tried not to watch. She failed. There was something unsettling about his complete indifference to pain. He never flinched when the doctor removed a sliver of glass, never looked down when the wound was stitched. He only watched Olivia. When the doctor left, she said, "Does staring make the stitches heal faster?" "No." "Then stop." He buttoned a fresh black shirt over the bandage. "You resemble her." Olivia's irritation vanished. "The girl on the tape?" "Not physically. I remember almost nothing about her face. But you remember her voice. Every night." The honesty was so unexpected that Olivia had no immediate defense. Adrian walked to the windows. "My family owned a church outside Palermo. It was abandoned after my grandfather moved operations to America. When I was 14, my father took me there for a meeting. The Salvatore family attacked before midnight. Olivia remained still. My father's men were executed. The church was set on fire. I hid beneath a staircase while a girl I had never met kept the gunmen away from me." "How old was she?" 17? "Perhaps 18. "And she made the recording?" "There was an old confessional system connected to a tape machine. She pressed the button so I could hear her from beneath the stairs." "Why?" "I was panicking. She could not stay with me." Adrian's reflection looked more haunted than the man himself. "She told me to focus on a blue door painted on the wall. She said she remembered it, because frightened people need to believe someone else remembers the way out." Olivia's throat tightened. "What was her name?" "I never knew." "You spent 24 years searching for a nameless girl." "I spent 24 years searching for the men who took her." "And did you find them?" "Some." The single word carried enough darkness to make the room feel colder. Olivia looked down at the tape recorder resting on the table. "My sister was 17 when she disappeared." Adrian turned. Olivia had not intended to tell him. The words came because the storm, the recording, and the old pain had aligned too perfectly to resist. "Her name was Evelyn," Olivia said. "She was 9 years older than me. Our parents died when I was 6, and she became my legal guardian." "What do you remember?" "Very little." "That is not an answer. It is the only one I have." Adrian crossed the room slowly. Olivia continued before he could question her. "We lived in different places. Evelyn said we were traveling because she had temporary work. Sometimes Boston, sometimes New York, once overseas, though I don't know where. She kept changing our last name." Adrian's eyes sharpened. "When did she disappear?" "When I was 8. She left me with a woman named Margaret Hayes in Connecticut. Margaret later adopted me." "What did Evelyn tell you?" "That she needed to help someone." Adrian stopped directly in front of her. "When?" 24 years ago." Silence descended. Olivia's heartbeat became painfully loud. "No," she said before he could speak. "Do not decide this proves anything." "Where were you born?" "I don't know." "What was your sister's real name?" "Evaine." "You hesitated." "Because Margaret once said it might not have been." Adrian reached for the tape recorder. Olivia moved first and placed her hand over it. "Do not play it again." "Why?" "Because you are listening for a ghost, not the truth." His gaze dropped to her hand. She realized she was touching his. Neither of them moved. The contact was small, almost accidental. Yet Adrian's breathing changed. The cold, feared man, who had watched a doctor stitch his shoulder without blinking, went completely still beneath the warmth of her fingers. Olivia withdrew her hand. "You cannot turn me into her," she said. His expression closed again. "I have no desire to." "Then why are you looking at me as if I owe you an explanation for surviving?" The question struck him. She saw it. For the first time, Adrian looked away. That night, Olivia was given a bedroom overlooking the storm. She was also given 2 guards outside her door, security cameras in the hallway, and a bracelet that would trigger an armed response if removed or pressed twice. "It is not jewelry," Adrian told her. "I gathered that from the panic button. It tracks your location." She held up her wrist. "You do understand that giving a woman a tracking device is not generally considered romantic." His eyes lingered on the bracelet. "Nothing about this is romantic." The words should not have disappointed her. They did. Olivia closed the bedroom door in his face. At 3 a.m, she woke to the sound of a woman crying. She sat upright. The sound came again. Soft, broken by static. Olivia followed it into the hallway. The guards were gone. That frightened her more than their presence had. She moved toward a narrow staircase leading to the floor above. The crying grew clearer. Then came the familiar sentence. "I remember the blue door." Olivia reached the upper floor. A light glowed beneath a steel door. It was unlocked. Inside, Adrian stood in a hidden archive room, surrounded by shelves of tapes, photographs, passports, and case files. At the center of the room was a digital workstation, replaying the old recording. He looked over when Olivia entered. His face changed from surprise to anger. "You should be asleep. Your entire penthouse is playing my voice. It is not your voice. You seem less certain every time you hear it." Adrian silenced the recording. On one wall, photographs showed the ruined Sicilian church, burned pews, bullet holes, a staircase blackened by smoke. On another wall were images of missing women, dozens of them. Olivia moved closer. "They all disappeared the same year," Adrian said. "Who were they?" "Girls used by the Salvatore organization as couriers. Most were immigrants, runaways, or children, without families powerful enough to ask questions." Olivia found a blurred security photograph of a teenage girl stepping off a ferry. The girl's face was turned away, but she wore a silver pendant shaped like a crescent moon. Olivia touched her own throat. She wore the matching half. Adrian saw it. His control fractured. He crossed the room in 2 steps and caught the pendant gently between his fingers. "Where did you get this?" "Evelyn gave it to me." His knuckles brushed the hollow of her throat. The touch was not intimate by intention. It became intimate through stillness. Olivia could feel the heat of him, the restrained strength in his hand, the tension running through his body. Adrian turned the pendant over. Tiny letters had been engraved across the back. "E.H." Olivia had never noticed them. "Evelyn Hayes," she whispered. "No." Adrian's voice was rough. He released the pendant as though it had burned him. "The girl who saved me used another name." "What name?" "Lucia Belandi." Olivia stepped back. She had heard Belandi once before. Margaret Hayes had screamed it during a nightmare shortly before her death. Olivia had asked about it the next morning. Margaret claimed she did not remember. Adrian opened a file and removed a photograph. 2 girls stood outside a train station. One was Evelyn, older than Olivia remembered, but unmistakable. The other woman was Margaret Hayes. Beneath the photograph, both were identified as members of a covert witness network that moved children and informants away from organized crime families. Olivia sank into a chair. "Margaret knew. She helped hide you. From whom?" Adrian looked toward the wall of missing girls. "From the man who killed your sister." At dawn, Adrian received confirmation that Olivia's apartment had been emptied. Not robbed, erased. Her computer, contracts, notebooks, recordings, even the framed photograph of Evelyn had been removed. The hidden cameras had been burned out remotely. Only one object remained, a blue envelope placed in the center of her bed. Adrian would not let Olivia go to the apartment, so his men brought the envelope to the penthouse inside a protective case. There was no letter, only a flash drive. The file contained an audio recording made the previous night. Olivia's voice spoke from the penthouse bedroom. "I don't believe him." She remembered saying it quietly after closing the door on Adrian. The next line came from the bathroom. "I'm not my sister." Then a man's altered voice replied, "Prove it." A countdown began. 48 hours. Olivia looked at Adrian. "Prove what?" "That you cannot open something your sister locked." "What did she lock?" "We do not know." The altered voice continued. "Speak where the city can hear you, Olivia, or the people beside you will die in silence." The recording ended. Adrian ripped the flash drive from the computer and crushed it in his fist. Olivia stared at the blood forming across his palm. "He wants me to speak publicly." "Yes." "Why?" "To activate a system." "What system?" Adrian glanced toward his security chief. The scarred man's name was Gabriel Russo, Adrian's cousin and closest lieutenant. Gabriel answered. "Voice locks. Lucia designed them for the witness network. According to the recovered files, certain archives could only be opened by a living member of her bloodline." Olivia stood. "I'm a voice actress. I can replicate patterns, but that does not make me a biological key." Adrian faced her. "Your blood work will." She stiffened. "You tested my blood?" "The doctor collected a sample when he checked you for glass injuries. You had no right. I needed the truth. You stole it. I kept you alive long enough to be angry about it." The words were cold. His eyes were not. Olivia stepped toward him. "You do not get to violate me and call it protection." A muscle moved in Adrian's jaw. "I know." She had expected resistance, not admission. His voice lowered. "I crossed a line. You crossed several. I will not apologize for determining whether you are being hunted because of your blood. That does not make it acceptable." "No?" The room went silent. Adrian looked at the cut in his palm, then at her. "You are Lucia Belandi's biological sister." Olivia forgot her anger for one suspended second. The words seemed too large to enter her. Adrian placed the laboratory report on the table. Samples preserved from the Sicilian church matched Olivia's DNA closely enough to confirm an immediate family relationship. Her knees weakened. Adrian moved instinctively. His hand stopped inches from her arm. He almost touched her, then remembered her warning and let his hand fall. That restraint affected Olivia more than the touch would have. "She was real," Olivia whispered. "Yes, she saved you." "Yes." "And afterward?" His silence answered. Olivia looked at him through gathering tears. "You don't know if she died." "No." "But you believe she did." "I believe hope can become a form of cowardice when evidence has been buried for 24 years. Then why keep the tapes?" His face hardened. "Because grief and hope are not enemies. They are twins." That afternoon, the penthouse was attacked. Not with guns, with sound. Every speaker in the building activated simultaneously. Olivia's own voice filled the rooms, repeating fragments from years of performances. A queen ordering an execution. A mother begging a child to run. A lover whispering, "Come back to me." Adrian's security system began unlocking doors in response. Gabriel shouted from the control room. "They cloned her authorization profile. Shut down all voice access." Adrian ordered. "We can't. The override is reading her in real time." The lights died. An elevator opened on the private floor. Men wearing hotel maintenance uniforms stepped out with suppressed rifles. Adrian seized Olivia around the waist and pulled her behind a marble column as bullets tore through the living room. Crystals shattered. The city glittered beyond the windows as gunfire flashed through the dark penthouse. Adrian fired twice. 2 attackers fell. "Stay behind me," he said. "I'm noticing a pattern. This is not the time." It was not the time at the studio either. A bullet struck the column above her head. Adrian covered her with his body. "I will argue with you after everyone is dead. You say the most reassuring things." Gabriel's men entered from the stairwell. The gunfight moved toward the elevators. Adrian took Olivia through a concealed door behind the library. A narrow corridor descended into darkness. The moment they entered, steel sealed them inside. No guards, no windows, only emergency lights, and Adrian's hand around hers. He did not release her. They reached an underground garage where a single armored car waited. Adrian opened the door. Olivia looked back toward the tower. Smoke rose behind the upper windows. Your home can be replaced. People can't. His gaze settled on her. No. The word held more emotion than anything he had said all day. They drove through rain toward a safe house outside the city. Halfway there, Gabriel called. The attackers had targeted the archive room. They stole nothing. Instead, they left a message painted across the wall. Let her speak. Adrian ended the call and stared through the windshield. Olivia studied his profile. You can't keep moving me forever. I can. You cannot build a fortress around every room I enter. I already have contractors reinforcing your studio. She turned toward him. You did what? Ballistic glass, private ventilation, signal jammers, 2 secure exits. You invaded my workplace. I improved it. You turned a recording studio into a bunker. Yes, without asking me. If I had asked, you would have refused. Correct? That is why I did not ask. Olivia stared at him in disbelief. He looked back without apology. Then the armored car swerved. A truck struck them from the side. Metal screamed. The vehicle rolled once and landed against a concrete divider. Olivia hung from the seat belt. Stunned, Adrian's hand closed around the back of her neck. Look at me. She tried. Blood ran from a cut near his temple. Olivia, look at me. I am. Can you move? Yes. Gunfire struck the armored doors. Adrian released his seat belt and braced himself over her. The driver was unconscious. The rear escort vehicle had been forced off the road. A black van stopped ahead of them. Masked men emerged, carrying directional speakers rather than rifles. A recorded voice blasted through the damaged car. Open. Emergency release. The car obeyed. The locks disengaged. Adrian fired through the opening before the attackers could pull the door wide. He dragged Olivia out through the opposite side and down the embankment. Rain soaked them instantly. They ran beneath the highway, Adrian shielding her as bullets sparked against concrete. At the riverbank, they found themselves trapped between dark water and armed men descending the slope. Adrian pushed Olivia behind a support pillar. Can you swim? In that, the river churned black under the storm. If necessary. He removed his jacket and placed it over her shoulders despite the rain. The gesture was absurd. Tender. Terrifying. What are you doing? She asked. Keeping you warm. We are being hunted. You can be hunted and cold at the same time. The men closed in. Adrian checked his remaining ammunition. 3 rounds. 6 attackers. Olivia heard one of the directional speakers replaying her voice. The sounds overlapped beneath the bridge, creating a distorted chorus. Then, she understood. They're using my voice to locate us. Adrian looked at her. The microphones, Olivia said. The shooter, the cameras, the speaker attack. They aren't just collecting samples. They're tracking acoustic response. How? Every space changes a voice. Echo. Distance. Absorption. They can identify where I am from the return signal. Adrian pulled a small earpiece from his pocket. Gabriel. Static answered. Olivia took the device. She changed her breathing, lowered her resonance, and spoke in Adrian's exact cadence. Move to the east access road. The attackers turned toward the false direction. Adrian stared at her. Olivia shifted again, mimicking Gabriel. Target is crossing beneath the north ramp. 3 men separated from the group. Adrian shot the nearest attacker, took his weapon, and moved with lethal calm through the confusion. The entire fight lasted less than 30 seconds. When it ended, rain washed blood into the river. Olivia stood beneath the bridge, still wearing Adrian's jacket. He returned to her with a gun in each hand. There was blood on his collar and violence in his eyes. For the first time, she truly feared him. He saw it. His steps slowed. "Are you afraid of me?" Olivia could have lied. Yes. Adrian accepted the answer without flinching. "You should be, but not for the reason you think." His expression shifted. "I'm afraid," she said, "because every time someone comes for me, you become less human." Rain moved over his face. "They tried to take you. You barely know me. I know enough." "No. You know my sister's blood," and a familiar voice. Adrian stepped close. His hand rose toward her cheek. Stopped. Fell again? "I know you correct people when you are terrified," he said. "I know you touch the pendant at your throat whenever someone mentions Evelyn. I know you drink tea after midnight and leave it untouched when you are worried. I know you hate being ordered but will walk into danger if someone else is at risk." Olivia's breath caught. Adrian's voice became quieter. "And I know the sound you make when you are trying not to cry." For one suspended moment, the storm seemed to disappear. His gaze dropped to her mouth. Olivia felt the dangerous pull between them, grief mistaken for recognition, protection becoming hunger, loneliness finding something equally wounded. Adrian leaned closer. A car horn sounded above them. Gabriel's convoy arrived. Adrian stepped away, as though he had been struck. The safe house was an abandoned lakeside monastery, converted into a fortified estate. Stone walls, iron gates, a chapel lit by hundreds of candles because the storm had damaged the power lines. Olivia found Adrian there after midnight, standing before an altar with his hands braced against the wooden rail. "You almost kissed me," she said. He did not turn. That was an error. It did not feel like one. That is why it was dangerous. She walked down the aisle. "You think wanting anything makes you weak. No. Wanting creates leverage. For your enemies. For everyone." Olivia stopped beside him. Candlelight softened the severe planes of his face. "Did you ever love my sister?" Adrian looked at the altar. "I was 14. She was kind to me for less than an hour. That was not my question." "No," he said at last. "I did not love her. I worshipped the fact that she had been brave when everyone else failed." Olivia absorbed that. "So, I'm not competing with a dead woman. You are not competing with anyone. Then what am I doing here?" His gaze finally met hers. "Ruining every defense I have." The honesty between them felt more intimate than a confession of love. Adrian touched her pendant. This time, Olivia did not stop him. His fingers rested against the silver crescent, then moved lightly to the side of her neck. Her pulse jumped beneath his thumb. "I should send you somewhere I cannot find you," he said. "Would that keep me safe?" "No." "Would it keep you safe?" His expression darkened. "Nothing will do that now." He kissed her, not gently, not carelessly, with the restraint of a man who had denied himself too long and the fear of one who expected the moment to be taken away. Olivia gripped the front of his shirt. His hand settled at her waist, drawing her closer, holding her full body against his without hesitation or apology. There was no surprise in his touch, no judgment, only need sharpened by control. Then he tore himself away. His forehead rested against hers. "No." Olivia was breathless. "You are the one who started that. I am ending it." "Why?" "Because I cannot distinguish desire from terror." "Whose terror?" His eyes closed. "Mine." The next morning, Gabriel discovered a hidden file inside Lucia's recording. The old tape contained a frequency beneath ordinary hearing. When isolated, it revealed a sequence of numbers and a date. The date was Olivia's 8th birthday. The numbers corresponded to storage lockers beneath Union Station. Adrian wanted to send men alone. Olivia refused. "My sister left it for me. She left it for someone with your voice. That is me." It is also what Salvatore wants. Then he expects you to lock me away. Adrian looked at her across the monastery dining table. You are not leaving this property. Olivia stood. You do not own me. No? Then stop speaking as though you do. I own every road between here and Chicago. You cannot threaten geography into obeying you. I have done worse. She leaned forward, palms against the table. My entire life has been shaped by people deciding what I was allowed to know. Evelyn hid me. Margaret lied to me. Salvatore watched me. You tested my blood and rebuilt my studio without permission. I am done being protected through ignorance. Adrian's expression became glacial. You think knowledge makes bullets less fatal? No. I think choice makes survival worth something. For several seconds, neither moved. Then Adrian said, We leave in 10 minutes. Union Station was crowded with afternoon travelers when Olivia entered wearing a dark coat and a chestnut wig. Adrian walked beside her as an ordinary businessman. Nothing about him looked ordinary. His men moved invisibly through the station. The storage lockers were located in a lower corridor beside the old service tunnels. Locker 417 opened only after Olivia spoke the sentence. I remember the blue door. The mechanism clicked. Inside was a reel of film, a small brass key, and a letter addressed to Olivia. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Little Livy, if you are hearing my voice in your own, then I am sorry. I wanted you to inherit my courage, not my danger. Victor Salvatore created a system called Echo. He uses voice patterns to identify witnesses who change names and faces. No passport can hide a person from him once he has heard them speak. I stole the original archive containing every identity Echo has tracked. I locked it behind our family voice print so Victor could never open it without you. Do not trust the Russo family blindly, but trust the boy beneath the stairs if he remembers the blue door. He was worth saving. You are worth everything. Evain. Olivia could no longer see the page clearly. Adrian stood behind her, silent. She handed him the letter. He read it once, then again. At the final line, his composure broke. Not dramatically. His shoulders lowered. His eyes closed. A man who had spent decades turning grief into power suddenly looked like the 14-year-old boy beneath the stairs. Olivia reached for him. Adrian stepped away. The rejection hurt. Then she saw the camera above the lockers rotate toward them. Adrian. The corridor doors slammed shut. Gas hissed from the vents. Adrian pulled his coat over Olivia's mouth and fired at the camera. A voice came through the station speakers. Victor Salvatore. Hello, Olivia. She recognized the polished tone immediately. The man who had praised her work. The man who had collected her voice for years. You were always my finest performer, Victor continued. Even before you knew the role, Adrian found the ventilation controls and tore open the panel. You killed Evelyn, Olivia said toward the speaker. No. Your sister was alive when I last saw her. Adrian froze. Olivia's heart stopped. When? She demanded. Ask Adrian. The speaker went silent. Olivia turned. Adrian's face answered before he spoke. You knew? She whispered. I suspected. That she survived? For 6 years after the church, there were reports. And you never told me. I did not know whether they were real. You told me hope was cowardice. I was trying to keep you from chasing a ghost. You were trying to control what I knew. The gas thickened. Adrian ripped wires from the ventilation system. Fans activated, pulling the fumes away. The corridor doors unlocked. Gabriel's men rushed inside. Olivia moved past them. Adrian caught her arm. She turned on him with tears burning her eyes. Let go. Olivia, you knew she might have lived. I knew Salvatore wanted me to believe it, and you decided I did not deserve that possibility? I decided you deserved to survive it. She pulled free. That is not love. The word fell between them. Adrian went still. Olivia had not meant to say it. Perhaps she had. His voice became dangerously quiet. No, it is not. She left with Gabriel while Adrian remained beneath the station, surrounded by echoes. For the next 2 days, Olivia refused to speak to him. She stayed in a secure guest wing at a Russo-owned hospital, while engineers examined the film reel and brass key. Adrian did not enter her room. He sat outside it, every night. Olivia knew because she could see his shadow beneath the door. He never knocked, never ordered her to let him in, never left before sunrise. On the 3rd night, she opened the door. Adrian sat in a chair across the hallway, sleeves rolled to his forearms, a gun resting on the table beside him. He looked exhausted. Not physically, something deeper. "You could sleep," she said. "So could you. I am not the one conducting surveillance from a hospital chair. I am not watching you. What are you doing? Making certain the first thing a killer sees is me." Olivia leaned against the doorframe. "You lied. Yes. You decided for me. Yes. You hurt me." His eyes lifted. "Yes. No defense. No manipulation. Only acceptance." "Why didn't you knock?" she asked. "Because you told me to let you go." Her anger weakened in the face of his obedience. "That has never stopped you before." "It should have." Olivia looked down the empty corridor. What were the reports? Adrian did not move. Lucia was seen in Prague, Istanbul, and Montreal. Each sighting occurred near an echo facility that was destroyed days later. She was fighting Victor, possibly. Was there a final sighting? Boston, 17 years ago. Olivia did the math. 3 years after Evelyn had left her. Why did it stop? "We found blood in a burned apartment." The DNA technology available then was inconclusive. And now, Gabriel is testing the sample against yours. Olivia closed her eyes. Adrian rose. He did not touch her. "I should have told you." "Yes. I thought withholding hope would spare you pain. It did not." "I know." She opened her eyes. "Do you love me?" The question stripped the air from the hallway. Adrian's face became unreadable. Then his control failed with startling simplicity. Yes. No speech. No seduction. One word. Olivia's throat tightened. "Since when?" "Since beneath the bridge, when you were afraid of me and stayed." That is not a healthy answer. I have very few healthy qualities. Despite everything, the corner of her mouth moved. Adrian noticed. His gaze softened, almost imperceptibly. "I do not love your sister's voice," he said. "I love the woman who refuses to let me confuse protection with possession. I love the woman who argues while bullets are being fired because she cannot tolerate poor logic. I love the way you occupy a room without asking permission from it." Olivia's eyes filled. Adrian stepped closer but stopped beyond reach. "And I am terrified," he continued, "that loving you has made every enemy I have more dangerous." "No." She crossed the distance herself. "It made you honest." She kissed him. This time, Adrian did not retreat. His hands settled carefully at her waist, as though asking a question. Olivia answered by drawing him closer. The kiss deepened. All the restraint between them became heat, his fear, her anger, the grief connecting them, and the hope neither had been willing to claim. When they separated, Adrian pressed his forehead to hers. "I will still kill anyone who tries to take you." I assumed that part was non-negotiable. "It is. But you ask before tracking me." His jaw tightened. "Yes. And before rebuilding my workplace." A pause. "Yes. And before testing my blood." "That situation is unlikely to repeat." "Adrian." "Yes." She touched his face. He turned his mouth into her palm. The gesture was so vulnerable that it nearly broke her heart. Gabriel arrived before dawn. The blood from the Boston apartment did not belong to Evelyn. She might still be alive. The film reel revealed the location of the original Echo archive, beneath Meridian Pictures' historic theater in Los Angeles. Victor had built his public empire directly above the system he used to identify and eliminate witnesses. The brass key opened the archive. Olivia's voice would open the final door. Victor announced a live televised gala at the Meridian Theatre the following evening. He also released Olivia's identity to the press. For the first time, her face appeared across every entertainment network in America. Private voice star revealed. Mystery actress linked to Russo crime empire. Reporters surrounded the hospital. Drones hovered outside the windows. Old photographs were purchased, edited, and debated. Commentators discussed her body, her clothes, her career, and her relationship with Adrian as though privacy had never belonged to her. Olivia watched for less than a minute before turning off the television. Adrian stood across the room, fury controlled behind silence. "He did this to force me into public," she said. "Yes. The gala is the stage. Yes. And echo will scan every voice in the theater. Yes." Olivia looked at him. "Then we give Victor the performance he wants." "No." "Adrian?" "No. You agreed that I have a choice." "You do. Choose something that does not require walking into a building designed to recognize and kill you. The archive can expose every murder, every paid official, every witness Victor erased. I do not care. You do. I care about you. And I care about the people whose names are in that archive." His expression darkened. Olivia stepped closer. "My sister gave up everything to protect strangers. I will not honor her by hiding while Victor keeps hunting them. I will not lose you to her war. It is my war, now." Adrian looked at her for a long time. Then he reached into his jacket and placed the brass key in her hand. "If we do this," he said, "you follow my instructions when the shooting begins. When, not if." The Meridian Gala glittered beneath 1,000 lights. Hollywood stars crossed the red carpet while cameras flashed. Limousines lined the boulevard. Reporters shouted questions about films, scandals, and Olivia Hayes. Then, black SUVs appeared at the far end of the street. Conversation died. Adrian stepped from the first vehicle in a black tuxedo. Olivia emerged beside him, wearing a deep, emerald gown designed to celebrate every curve of her body. Her auburn hair fell over one shoulder. The silver crescent pendant rested at her throat. For 11 years, she had hidden her face. Now, she offered it to the world without apology. Adrian placed one hand at the small of her back. Not controlling, steadying. The cameras erupted. "Olivia, are you being held by Adrian Russo? Are you his mistress? Did the Mafia finance your career?" Olivia stopped. Adrian's security detail tensed. She turned toward the cameras. "No one gave me my voice," she said. "And no one owns it." The crowd fell silent. Victor Salvatore waited at the top of the theater steps, silver-haired and smiling. "Perfect delivery," he said. Adrian's gaze could have frozen fire. Victor offered Olivia his hand. She ignored it. Inside, the theater glowed with gold balconies and red velvet seats. An orchestra played beneath a ceiling painted with angels. Hundreds of powerful people watched Olivia enter beside the most feared man in Chicago. Victor guided them toward the stage. The gala began as a celebration of cinematic voices. It became a trial. A massive screen descended. Victor played footage of Adrian's businesses, armed men, private compounds, and political meetings. He presented Adrian as a criminal who had manipulated an innocent actress into participating in a vendetta. Murmurs spread through the audience. Then Victor invited Olivia to the microphone. "One sentence," he said. "That is all I ever wanted." Adrian stood below the stage, surrounded by men Victor had placed throughout the theater. Olivia approached the microphone. She saw directional sensors hidden inside the decorative speakers. Echo was listening. Victor leaned close. "Open the archive. Where is my sister?" His smile did not change. "Alive the last time she refused me." "Where?" "Say the words." Olivia looked toward Adrian. He gave no signal, no command, only trust. She faced the audience. "I remember the blue door. Deep beneath the stage, machinery moved. A hidden lock opened. Victor's smile widened. Then the theater screens changed. Names appeared. Thousands of them. Witnesses. Missing women. Police officers. Judges. Politicians. Actors. Journalists. Every person Echo had tracked or targeted over 3 decades. Gabriel had connected the archive directly to international law enforcement servers the moment Olivia opened it. Victor's expression collapsed. Shut it down. No one moved. Olivia stepped away from the microphone. "You wanted my voice," she said. "Now everyone can hear what you did with it." Victor drew a gun. Adrian was already moving. The first shot struck the chandelier above the stage. The theater exploded into panic. Armed men emerged from the balconies. Russo guards returned fire. Guests crawled between velvet seats while glass and plaster rained from the ceiling. Adrian reached Olivia and shielded her as bullets tore across the stage. Together, they moved behind the curtain. Victor escaped through a hidden passage beneath the orchestra pit. Olivia and Adrian followed. The tunnel led to the Echo Archive, a vast underground chamber lined with servers, recording booths, and walls containing thousands of labeled voice samples. Olivia heard voices everywhere. Children, women, men begging for mercy. The dead preserved as data. At the far end of the chamber stood Victor. Beside him was a woman with silver hair and a scar along her jaw. A gun was pressed to her throat. Olivia stopped breathing. The woman wore the other half of the crescent pendant. "Evelyn," Olivia whispered. The woman's eyes filled. Little Livy. The childhood name shattered every remaining doubt. Olivia moved forward. Adrian caught her hand. Victor smiled. "Lucia has been remarkably difficult to kill." Evelyn looked older than her years, worn by captivity and war, but her voice was the voice from the tape, the voice Olivia had inherited. "I stayed hidden because Echo could find me whenever I spoke," Evelyn said. "Victor kept samples from the church. I destroyed his stations, but I could never reach the original archive." "You left me," Olivia said, tears burning her eyes, "to keep him from hearing you. He heard me anyway." "I know." Pain moved across Evelyn's face. "I watched your career from places without sound. I saw every role, every award. I could never call." Victor tightened his grip. "Enough." Adrian raised his gun. Victor pressed the weapon harder against Evelyn. "You shoot. She dies." "Perhaps," Adrian said. His calm returned. "Cold, but it's easy. But you die first." Victor looked toward Olivia. "Tell him to lower the gun." Olivia understood then. Victor did not truly fear Adrian's weapon. He feared voices. "Comment?" The system around them responded to authenticated speech. Olivia looked at the sound panels lining the chamber. She changed her posture, changed her breath. When she spoke, Victor heard his own voice. "Echo emergency purge. Authorization, Salvatore Prime." Victor's face drained. The system answered. Voice authorization accepted. Alarms began screaming. Server lights turned red. Victor fired at Olivia. Adrian stepped in front of her. The bullet struck him below the ribs. He staggered. Olivia screamed. Evelyn drove her elbow into Victor's throat. His gun fell. Adrian fired from one knee. Victor Salvatore dropped beside the machine he had built from stolen voices. The archive began burning itself from the inside. Gabriel's team stormed the chamber and freed Evelyn. Olivia fell beside Adrian. Blood spread beneath his tuxedo. "No," she whispered. "No, no. Look at me." His eyes found hers. "You followed none of my instructions. You were shot. I noticed." She pressed both hands against the wound. "Stay with me." Adrian looked toward Evelyn, then back to Olivia. "The blue door," he said faintly. "What?" "There." Through the smoke, a blue emergency door stood across the chamber, the same color as the painted door in the Sicilian church. Evelyn saw it too. For 24 years, One sentence had kept Adrian alive. Now Olivia leaned close to him as Gabriel's men lifted him onto a stretcher. Her voice broke, but she forced it steady. "I remember the blue door." Adrian's fingers closed around hers. "So do I." The Meridian Theater burned until dawn. Victor's archive did not survive, but its contents had already been transmitted to law enforcement agencies, newspapers, and international courts. More than 80 officials were arrested within a week. Hidden witnesses were relocated. Families learned what had happened to missing daughters, brothers, and parents. The Echo network collapsed. Adrian remained unconscious for 3 days. Olivia stayed beside him. So did Evelyn. Their reunion was not simple. Love did not erase 24 years of absence. Evelyn explained the disguises, the false identities, the years spent sabotaging Echo cells while never speaking above a whisper in public. Olivia listened, cried, became angry, forgave nothing too quickly, and still held her sister's hand when the nightmares came. On the 3rd night, Adrian woke. Olivia was asleep beside his hospital bed, her cheek resting near his hand. He moved one finger. She opened her eyes immediately. For a moment, neither spoke. Then, Olivia began to cry. Adrian frowned weakly. "This reaction seems excessive." She laughed through the tears. "You were clinically dead for 40 seconds. I've had worse meetings." She leaned over and kissed him. His hand rose slowly to the back of her neck. When they separated, he looked past her toward Evelyn, standing in the doorway. Recognition moved across his face. Not worship, not the desperate attachment of a child. Gratitude. Evelyn approached the bed. "You grew up," she said. Adrian looked at Olivia. "Eventually." Evelyn smiled. It was the first time Olivia saw how similar they truly were. 6 months later, Olivia returned to Studio 6. The ballistic glass remained. She had allowed that. The armed guards did not. Adrian compromised by placing security downstairs and pretending the 2 men in the coffee shop across the street were unrelated to him. Olivia pretended to believe him. Her face was public now, but she continued choosing roles for the same reason she always had. She loved disappearing into voices, not because she wanted to disappear from herself. Evelyn established a foundation for survivors of the Echo network. Adrian funded it through an independent trust. After Olivia warned him that naming a rescue organization after himself would be emotionally suspicious and aesthetically unbearable, he accepted the criticism with poor grace. One rainy evening, Olivia finished recording the final chapter of a new audiobook. When she stepped from the booth, Adrian was sitting alone in the control room. No guards, no old tape recorder, only 2 glasses of wine and a small blue box. Olivia stopped. "You cancelled meetings again." "Yes." "How many?" "All of them." "That seems irresponsible." "It is becoming a tradition." She approached the console. Adrian stood. He still carried the faint scar from Victor's bullet. It changed nothing about his presence. Men continued to fear him. Rivals continued to lower their voices when he entered rooms. But Olivia knew the man who sat outside closed doors without knocking. The man who remembered how she took her tea. The man who had learned that protection without consent was only another kind of cage. Adrian opened the blue box. Inside was not a diamond ring. It was a key. Small. Brass. Olivia looked at him. "What does it open?" "A house on the Maine coast." "You bought a house?" "I bought the land. The house requires your approval." "That is unexpectedly reasonable." "I am capable of growth." Occasionally. His mouth almost smiled. "The property has a recording studio facing the ocean," he said. "A library for Evelyn. Reinforced glass, though I am prepared to negotiate its thickness." Olivia touched the key. "And what are you asking?" Adrian took her hand. For a man who commanded armies of loyalty, the next words cost him more than any threat ever had. "I am asking you to build a life with me." Are you proposing? I am attempting to. You usually sound more confident. I have never asked for something I could not take. Olivia's expression softened. And you cannot take this. No. He lowered himself to one knee. Adrian Russo, feared by politicians, criminals, and men who had spent their lives believing power could not bow, knelt beneath the studio lights, where Olivia's voice had first undone him. He placed the brass key in her palm. No tracking devices, she said. None. No secret blood tests. Never. No rebuilding rooms without permission. A pause. Adrian. Agreed. And no confusing me with my sister. His Chaza held hers. I knew your sister for less than 1 hour. I will honor her until I die. He lifted Olivia's hand to his lips. But I know you. I know your anger, your courage, your silences, your impossible compassion. I know the woman behind every voice. His expression became unguarded. I love only her. Olivia sank to her knees in front of him. She cupped his face in both hands. Yes. Adrian closed his eyes. For one quiet second, the most powerful man in the room looked relieved simply to be chosen. Then he kissed her as rain moved over the city windows. Months later, they married at the restored church in Sicily. The burned staircase remained. So did the faded blue door painted on the wall across from it. Evelyn stood beside Olivia. Gabriel stood beside Adrian. No celebrities attended. No reporters were invited. Only survivors, loyal friends, and the people who had helped turn buried voices into living testimony filled the candlelit pews. After the vows, Olivia found Adrian alone beneath the staircase. He stood in the same place where a frightened boy had once waited for the bells to stop. She slipped her hand into his. You came back, she said. I had to. To remember? He looked toward the blue door. No. Then he turned to her. To finally leave. The bells began ringing above them. Adrian did not flinch. Olivia leaned against him, the curves of her body fitting against his side as his arm settled securely around her waist. Together, they walked toward the blue door. Beyond it waited sunlight, the sea, Evelyn's laughter, and a life neither grief nor violence had managed to steal. Adrian opened the door. Olivia crossed the threshold first, and for the first time in 24 years, he followed a voice not because it reminded him of the past, but because it had become his future.